Well, that was a nice surprise. Five Nights at Freddy's Into the Pit was an upcoming horror game due to release on August 8th. But thanks to a little botch-up with its release date leading to Japan getting access to the game early, developer Megacat Studio went, you know what, screw it, everybody just can have the game early. Which, if you've been a long-time fan of the franchise, has happened more than a few times. Though this time it wasn't a cheeky little joke from Scott. We actually have the game fully ready to play. So, naturally, I immediately dropped what I was doing and threw myself into this game. I do have a couple of other videos currently in the works, but they're just gonna have to wait. FNAF releases are few and far between nowadays, and I was particularly excited for this one. From the game's first trailers, I knew right away I was in for a much different experience to prior FNAF entries. I mean, just look at that fantastic pixel art and unique gameplay style. Unique at least for a FNAF, of course. It actually reminded me of that great 2D survival horror game Lone Survivor by Superflat Games, which if you haven't played before, I'd also recommend checking out. While the Five Nights at Freddy's series is predominantly about nightmarish animatronics, mangled children, and a grape-flavored child murderer, it feels like a lot of the games have had, well, much softer edges to them recently. While the stories still feature some dark themes, it feels like the games sometimes turn the camera away from the violence and just kinda winks at its audience. In horror films, it's a popular trope to not actually show too much of the monster, letting the audience's imagination fill in the gaps. But this ain't no horror movie, I wanna see that spooky shit. I've always kind of worried this series was starting to pivot into PG-rated horror due to FNAF's widespread popularity. I mean, when the FNAF movie dropped, I was hoping to see some truly grisly stuff. Instead, I got this.
Are you okay?
I think my legs might be broken.
And while I'm used to companies doing this now, given I'm a Sonic fan dating back to the dark ages of technology, I'm used to franchise storytelling regressing down to, well, middling slop. I did shed a tear for how dark I'd wanted the series to go, but what felt like would never really happen given FNAF's monumental success. If they lent too much into the horror, you know, the visceral gore and the dead kids which the series regularly alludes to, they'd kinda spook the horses, if you know what I mean. The horses being the investors. And little Timmy's mom. Because what's more important, an artist's vision or selling Funko Pops?
It's the money, you stupid little bitch.
But then we got confirmation of a Dead by Daylight collaboration, and this absolutely fantastic game dropping, all in the span of one day? I know I said it before, but damn, are we horror fans eating good this year. Just the announcement of FNAF collaborating with Dead by Daylight told me they weren't too scared to make things, well, dark again. In an interview Scott had with Dawko, he had gone on record to say,
I'm very careful with collaborations because I want to protect the brand and I want to make sure that Five Nights at Freddy's stays as Five Nights at Freddy's. And there are some games where even if I really enjoy the game, it just doesn't feel like a good match. It feels like a mismatch. The brand integrity is the most important thing for me in keeping everything feeling like it belongs. And so that's really been my only hesitancy.
Now initially, people took this to be a statement about Dead by Daylight. However, Dawko had mentioned Dead by Daylight and Fortnite in the same question. And I straight away felt like he was talking more about Fortnite than he was Dead by Daylight. So, to those who were desperately hoping to see Freddy smash out that orange justice after hitting a victory royale, I am so sorry for your loss. But we're getting off topic. We aren't going to be seeing Freddy and the gang roaming around the entity's realm until 2025. So let's bring things back to the topic at hand. And that is Into the Pit. The game puts us in the shoes of Oswald, a kid going through a pretty rough patch with his dad having just lost his job at the local mill and his mom having to essentially work overtime just to make ends meet. Every day his dad drops him off at the rundown local pizzeria, Jeff's Pizza, where he essentially just fills in his summer holidays until his dad returns to pick him up after working part-time at a corner store. Not a particularly fun or glamorous way to be burning your school holidays, but hey, at least there's pizza. While waiting around for his dad to pick him up, Oswald discovers a rundown ball pit in the back room of the restaurant. Clearly a holdover from the restaurant's heydays. And while he mulls over what he should do while waiting for his dad to return, he decides to play a little trick on him, a wee prank, if you will, hiding inside the scungy ball pit just to give his dad a bit of a scare. And boy, does that pit give off some serious DashCon vibes. After diving into the ball pit, he reemerges somewhere different, albeit eerily familiar. This pizzeria is vibrant, active, and full of kids playing and having fun. And the wall mural, definitely gives the game away on exactly where we are. At least to us, the audience. Turns out this ball pit is some kind of portal into the past, letting Oswald travel back and visit this place in its full glory days, back when it was Freddy Fazbear's. Exploring into the main dining hall, we see the animatronic trio center stage, surrounded by happy kids and blaring music. Here, Oswald makes new friends in Chip and Mike, and the three of them play some arcade games, tag, and hide and seek. Part of me wondered if maybe one of these kids would end up being like Oswald's young father or something. You know, like out of the Back to the Future playbook. Though that doesn't appear to be the case. And it's during our game of hide and seek where things start to go awry. There's a sudden power cut. The lights die out and the distant music cuts short. We hear the creak of a door as something shambles past us. This monstrous-looking animatronic, pushing its face uncomfortably close to where we are hiding. Its raspy, haggard breath like a death rattle, before relenting and skulking out of the room. The choking silence quickly erupts into panicked screams and thundering footsteps. Looks like we, picked a bad day to check out the ball pit. We search for Chip and Mike through the ensuing chaos, kids and parents fleeing the restaurant in a fevered panic, the animatronics on stage acting strangely. We try a door and a pair of glowing blue eyes pierce through the darkness. The lights buzz on as this golden rabbit smiles widely at us, waving his hand like it was just another day at the restaurant, leaning in closer and beckoning, wanting to show us something through the darkness of the open door behind him. Walking away with the flattest ass I have ever seen. We follow him, hoping that we'll find our friends, prying open the door at the end of the hallway. The silhouettes of crumpled legs limply lined up against the back wall of the party room. The rabbit turning his head with a predatory smile before a quick-time event has us dive out of the way, fleeing this stomping nightmare and diving back through to the safety of the ball pit. We scramble out into the rundown back room of Jeff's Pizza, heart pounding to the waiting stares of our father and Jeff, the later of which has to return back to the front counter. Our father approaches the ball pit to scold us about scaring him, but we're fine. Everything's alright. Everything's alright. Everything is not alright. The animatronic rabbit grappling our father, easily overpowering him and dragging him into the pit with its unyielding steel grip. We search frantically, grabbing hold and pulling, struggling and panicking, but pulling him free despite all odds. We get to our feet, look up at our father, or rather, what looks to be our father, realizing quickly that that thing that murdered all of those children, that golden rabbit, is somehow inside of our dad, grabbing our wrist like a vice grip and dragging us out of the pizzeria. Jeff not noticing anything out of the ordinary as we're taken back to our car. We traveled back to the restaurant's heydays, and something came back with us. And that's where this game kicks off. Into the Pit takes place over 5 days, with us trying to balance normal things like going to school, while also trying to return back to the ball pit to rescue our dad, and any other unfortunate kids still trapped in that place. Our nights are spent creeping around our home, trying to avoid that thing from catching us, only for us to return back to Freddy's and uncover more about what happened back in the 80s, rescuing other kids and uncovering clues as we go. The game features multiple endings and a myriad of secret minigames, Easter eggs, and things to keep you well invested. The game takes about 3 hours, give or take, to finish on your first run, but you probably aren't seeing the game's best ending on your first rodeo. The game uses the same star rating system as past entries have. 1 star for seeing the normal or bad ending of the game, and the 2nd star for seeing the good ending, and the final star for seeing the best ending, attainable after completing all of the game's hidden retro minigames. Not the arcade games you gradually repair, though. That's like a separate thing. Like, I can honestly say the retro minigames are hidden pretty damn well. Through normal gameplay, I didn't run into any of them on my first run, and it wasn't until I started to kinda mess around a bit that I even stumbled onto one of them on my 2nd playthrough. I don't really want to spoil anything for these, but if you're stuck, just know you can activate all 3 of them on the final night of the game. Moving on, the game's atmosphere is fantastic. The pixel art is gorgeously terrifying, and every encounter with the rabbit or the other animatronics is genuinely scary. It's really nice to see the FNAF universe again, but through a different kind of horror lens than what we're usually accustomed to. While I love the original games and still think Security Breach is a fantastic game, bugs be damned, the FNAF franchise is 10 years old now. So seeing a new formula for games is a pretty welcome change. From the dusty, rundown locations to the finer details like beams of light and creaking floorboards, this game is incredibly immersive, and has honestly probably had me jump in my seat more than, well, most other FNAF games out there. The game even has a brief moment where you have to cycle through the pizzeria's security cameras, which is a cool little throwback to the original game's core mechanics. Not only that, but while you play through the game, you'll occasionally hear a phone ringing out somewhere in the pizzeria, which if you answer, will be our old buddy, Phone Guy, who will impart some wise words of wisdom to you.
If you really have nothing to do after work and want to stay a little bit longer, play some games in the arcade. Not every machine works, though.
Into the Pit has 5 locations, 3 of which you'll be visiting pretty frequently, while the other 2, the library and mill, are a little underutilized, honestly. The main locations you'll be spending most of your time are your home, school, and of course, the pizzeria. During the day, your home is pretty safe to walk around. Though your possessed dad will kinda hover around menacingly, he doesn't make any kind of move to endanger you. This can be a good time to get a lay of the land before the inevitable nightfall, where Rabbit Dad decides to drop the act and go full Ted Bundy mode on you. Your task every night is to escape your home, something you can do in a variety of ways, from escaping out the attic window, to slipping out of the basement using a ladder. Even the window in your room and the front door are options. School is where you'll interact with a lot of other side characters, attend your classes, and scrounge up some extra supplies like batteries. There isn't really quite as much to do here as there is at your home or at the pizzeria, but there's a lot of story beats that happen here, so you will be seeing this place a lot. And finally, we have the pizzeria, seemingly the only restaurant still running in this town apparently, which comes in both Freddy's original and Rundown Jeff's variant. When you first get here on earlier nights, you won't have access to the full layout of this place. But as the nights progress, you'll get more key items, which will really open up more routes and side rooms for you. This place is relatively safe while in the present, but when you travel into the ball pit and visit this place during its Freddy years, it's anything but. Sadly, when you're back in time, the game doesn't let you travel to any other location outside of the pizzeria, which is kind of a bummer. I understand that would have been a lot of work to implement, but I had really hoped the whole time I was playing the game that I was going to get a chance to explore places like the mill, to get a glimpse of it before it was shut down and abandoned. There's this giant mill door there which you can't even enter during the modern segments of the game. And yet the piles of trash around it have a lot of little Easter eggs from past FNAF games that made me wonder what was hiding behind the big door.
This could be anything. It could even be a boat. You know how much we've wanted one of those.
But alas, we'll never know. And admittedly, if we could just freely leave Freddy's during the later portions of the game, it would probably really hurt the tension. So, I get it. And speaking of tension, this game has no shortage of it. On your first night, you'll only be contending with our golden rabbit buddy here, who I wanna say is William Afton, but I genuinely don't know at this point. The games have so many variants now, it could be like his twin brother, Billiam Bafton, at this point. Like, I don't know, I didn't read the books, get off my back. But on later nights, he gets more animatronic backup from the rest of the gang, and that's when things can become pretty stressful. I also swear sometimes the E button just does not work for me, which has gotten me killed like a lot more than I'd like to admit. So, I mean, I don't know if that counts as tension, but anytime I'm clawing at a door because something's chasing me down, I sure am pretty tense. It's not just from the gameplay though. The fantastic sound design always has you on edge. Listening out, you can actually hear the animatronics walking in other rooms, sometimes even chuckling and breathing, as well as them fiddling with the door handles when they're trying to get in. Which helps a lot if you don't want to bowl right into one of them and just, get dumpstered. The game usually has more of an industrial, cold ambience than actual music, which I think was definitely the right choice. Though the ending song, Voices from the Pit, is genuinely a great listen, on par with some classic Living Tombstone songs, I'd even say. It's also worth noting that Into the Pit is also the name of a book in the Fazbear Fright series. And while I just mentioned before I've not gotten around to reading the books yet, skimming through a brief synopsis, it looks like this game is a full-on adaptation of that book, which I really like. I know the FNAF community is kind of split on whether or not they like the books being a part of the main story canon, as having required reading to fully grasp a game you're about to play is one step closer to a full-on Kingdom Hearts flowchart. And nobody wants that. Not even the Kingdom Hearts guys want that. Outside of maybe MatPat. MatPat might want that. But if the series continues to adapt these stories into video games, especially ones as engaging as Into the Pit here, I feel like this is kind of the perfect solution for everyone. I mean, this game certainly got me interested in reading the story. Overall, this game was a great time, and a pretty reasonable price for how much fun I had with it. Give it a go, heck, even if you don't normally enjoy FNAF games. Or wait for the inevitable Markiplier playthrough that will probably be out even before I finish making this video. But if you did want to see a playthrough of this game, I'm actually going to be chucking one up to go alongside this video. It's not going to have any kind of commentary or avatars or anything on it, just a little something for people who want to experience the game from beginning to end. It'll have all 3 endings, the hidden mini-games, all that jazz. And, well, until next time, everybody, take care of yourselves. And, maybe avoid ball pits. Especially ones at pizzerias. And at DashCon. I bet someone peed in